Hey guys, welcome to the Fantasy Buckets podcast. I'm your host once again, Jacob. Week 3 just came and went. We're now into week 4. These are going to be again the waiver wire prospects going into week 4. You know the drill. It's the essential knowledge that you'll need, as I've said before. Week 3 was good. We saw Dwayne Wade go back to Miami. And it was kind of awkward. The fans showed him a lot of love, but, you know, him and Pat Riley hadn't really spoken since the whole trade and whatnot. So that was kind of awkward, but, you know, Pat Riley spoke out about that and spoke his part. Dwight Howard has been doing great with the Atlanta Hawks, and he's got them off to a great start. He looks rejuvenated. I mentioned him. I mentioned him in my Deep Sleepers video, which was one of my first videos. Just saying that I thought he was gonna have a good year and thought that he was gonna come back as a new Dwight, and he seems to be just that so far. He's doing great. Klay Thompson has found his shooting touch again, and he looks like he's back to his old form. He's still not going to give you what he was able to give you last year. But, you know, that's neither here nor there. You're not going to drop the guy. So, yeah, you got to hold on to Klay Thompson and, you know, just hope that he can get back to at least being close to what his fantasy production was last season. And I mean, depending on where you took him, unless you really reach for him, you should be pretty happy with where he's gonna, kind of round out at. We had some good waiver wire prospects for that popped up on our radar during week 3. These are going to be guys that you can pick up going into week 4, and let's get into it. First guy on the list is going to be Maurice Harkless. Maurice Harkless, a small forward for the Portland Trailblazers. Al-Farouq Aminu is out for a couple weeks with a calf strain, and Maurice Harkless was already getting a decent amount of minutes before Aminu got hurt. But since he's been hurt, he's been in the mix even more. He's scored 17 points in 3 out of his last 5 games. So that right there is great in itself. He's getting you buckets. He's getting you them fantasy buckets. He's also been providing blocks and threes since Aminu's been out. So he looks like a good young player. Like he's long, he's lengthy, he's athletic. If there's anything missing about his game, it's like he's not gonna create his own shot. But he's got playmakers in McCollum and Lillard that he can feed off of and get his touches and his points based off of their playmaking abilities. And he's a good defender. He's long, he's lengthy, so of course he's been getting blocks. And him knocking down threes is a plus. He's only owned in 19.8% of most leagues. So if you need a small forward, Maurice Harkless is there, and plug and play him in until Aminu comes back, because the way he's been looking, Aminu might not come back to his old position. Harkless might be taking over that. And Vonleh comes off the bench, and he's been getting mixed in, and Evan Turner is there. But since Aminu has left, Harkless has been the guy that has been, producing, and it's been that steady producer since Aminu's been out. So look for him. He's only 19% owned, so you should be able to pick him up. Let's get into the next guy. Next guy on the list is gonna be Lou Williams. Lou Williams. Now, Lou Williams is 60% owned, so he's somewhat known, but for 40% of you guys out there, you guys don't know about him. Maybe you're not in a competitive league, but for 60% of the leagues, he is known about, and he's a proven scorer off the bench. He's a former Sixth Man of the Year. Man, if you know Lou Williams games, he's smooth with it. He knows how to draw fouls. And when he draws fouls, he gets to the free throw line and he shoots a great free throw percentage. He's also clutch, man, and I feel like, Luke Walton probably trusts him in the fourth quarter and the final minutes more than he might trust some of these young guys at the moment. I know he wants to see these young guys flourish, but you also want to get some wins, so you have a possibility of getting in the playoffs and have your young guys experience some playoff basketball. So I see Luke Walton using him that way. Nick Young is also there, and he's kind of a similar type of player. But Lou Williams is a proven scorer, a proven vet that can come off the bench and score. Same way he's been around, the same way Jamal Crawford's been around for years, and he's just clutch. He's not getting a lot of minutes, but he can produce a lot of points in limited minutes. He doesn't have to play 30, 35 minutes a game. He comes in and he comes off the bench and he comes in slinging. He comes in shooting the ball. He comes in getting buckets, and that's his main role, is to come in and be instant offense. So if you need a plug and play, he's got the point guard, shooting guard tag label, so that also helps with manipulating your roster and whatnot. So Lou Williams is a great plug and play. For 40% of you guys out there, he's available, and scoop him up. Next guy on the list is going to be Clint Capela. Now, Clint Capela, I mentioned him in my Deep Sleeper video. He's paid off. He's done well. He's the second highest average points getter on the Rockets, behind James Harden. James Harden's got the number one average in fantasy points per game thus far. James Harden's been ridiculous, man. James Harden is leading the league in assists. There's talks about Beverly coming back, and D'Antoni's supposed to be plugging Beverly into the point guard position, and Eric Gordon's supposed to slide over to the bench as the shooting guard coming off the bench. But we'll see where that goes. In a way, I wouldn't. If I was D'Antoni, I wouldn't want to mess with Harden's groove right now and the Rockets' groove. But Beverly, they do need some defense, and Beverly does provide that. Anyways, Clint Capela, I mentioned in my Deep Sleeper video, like I mentioned before, and you can go back to that video and watch that, and I go more in depth about what he does and how, excuse me, and how he is as a young player. But he gets most of his looks near the basket, or their alley-oops from James Harden. Lately, he's been blocking a lot of shots. He had about, I think he's had at least one or two blocks in the last 4 games, and the most recent game he had 5 blocks. So he's a great source for block shots. He's only 33.9% owned. He's not playing 30 plus minutes. He's playing in the 25-minute range, and reason is because he is a poor free throw shooter. So D'Antoni's taking him out at the end of the game and plugging in Nene, because Nene is a better shooter than Capela is. He's maybe not the defender that he is, and he can't switch off and maybe shift his feet laterally to guard the way Capela could, but he is a better free throw shooter. And in a way, that kind of helps Capela's value, because if they go to hack a Capela and Capela's missing 5-6 free throws in a row, then he can give you a fantasy day from 18 and drop that all the way to 12 in a matter of minutes. And then more than likely, D'Antoni's just going to sit him down and bench him the rest of the game either way. So at least D'Antoni kind of is kind of aware of that, and he's making sure that he gets him out the game before the opposing team tries to use that as a strategy against the Rockets. So Clint Capela is still low key balling. Like I said, he's only 33.9% owned, and scoop him up definitely. Next guy on the list is going to be Wilson Chandler. Wilson Chandler, small forward for the Denver Nuggets. Chandler's a vet. He's been in the league. He's a proven scorer off the bench. And pretty much right now, the reason he is getting the opportunity and he's been producing, he was hurt himself. He just recently came back, but he only missed 2 games. But even before he was hurt, he was producing. He's averaging 14.8 points, 6.8 rebounds, 1 assist, and 29.1 minutes off the bench. Gary Harris is still having ankle issues. Will Barton is still out for several weeks with the ankle issue. Will Barton would, look for him when he starts making his comeback, when he starts getting close to that, because Will Barton, I think, is going to be a great addition for maybe one of the future waiver wire prospect videos. Darrell Arthur's still hurt with his knee, so yeah, their backcourt options are running thin in Denver, and this is giving Wilson Chandler all the opportunity to get buckets and put up some good stats. He's only 17.8% owned, so he's more than likely available in your league. And like I said, he's a vet. He's a proven scorer off the bench. He's had a couple seasons in his past where he's averaged double-digit scoring, so he's more than capable of putting up some numbers and getting you some fantasy points, especially while the Nuggets' backcourt options are running thin, and they're having a lot of trouble with injuries. So Wilson Chandler is a good pickup. Next on the list is going to be Rondae Hollis-Jefferson. He's averaging 20.7 fantasy points over his last 4 games. And he's averaging, in those last 4 games, 13 points on 52% field goal percentage. So he's shooting a great field goal percentage. 52 is pretty high for a small forward. But, last 4 games he's been doing it. He got off to a really slow start, so you might have picked him up as a flyer and thought he was going to pan out well, and then he just started giving you goose eggs and started giving you duds, so you dropped him. But he's picked it up, and I don't know if that has to do with Jeremy Lin going down, but he's the best small forward position option on the Brooklyn Nets. And we didn't know a lot about the Brooklyn Nets. We didn't know who they were or what they were doing. So, like I said, a lot of these guys who are known names are flying under the radar because they're not well known and because we don't know what they're capable of are popping up now. We're starting to see trends of what certain players on that team can do. Kilpatrick is still a great pickup. He's still under 50% owned. And a lot of those guys that I've mentioned in previous waiver wire videos are still available. I'm bringing up different guys who are trending upward because just not to reiterate what I've already said in past videos. TJ Warren is still not owned at a percentage he should be. Like I said, Sean Kilpatrick, Tyler Johnson. There's plenty of guys that I've mentioned in previous videos. Taj Gibson. If you go back and watch those, you'll run into guys who still are great pickups and great plug and plays off the waiver wire. But Rondae Hollis-Jefferson, he's easily the best option at small forward. And he's been doing great for the Brooklyn Nets. Him and Kilpatrick have been holding down that backcourt. And he's only 13.1% owned. He's only 13.1% owned. So he he's definitely available, and you should pick him up if you need some small forward help, because within the last four games he's been beasting. Now, just some thoughts on some other situations going on. Jrue Holiday was reported to be coming back soon. If you picked him up, I mentioned him in the last sleeper video. So if you paid attention to that, you went and scooped him and you got him, and now he's sitting on your bench, and you're ready. You're ready to play him because you know that he could help you win that fantasy basketball championship for your league. But I would pump the brakes a little bit, because if you're a Tim Frazier owner, I wouldn't go and just drop Tim Frazier right off the bat. I wouldn't. I would wait and see how Holiday comes back, and I don't think he's just gonna come in and start playing, a buttload of minutes. I think he's gonna have to get into basketball shape, because there's nothing like playing. There's no way to simulate, NBA basketball speed of an actual game. You can practice all you want, but once you're in the game, it's a total different story. And Jrue Holiday's gonna have to get some conditioning up. And I mean, and there's always that, aspect of you don't know how he's gonna come back. You don't know if he's gonna come back, the same all-star Jrue Holiday that has always been around, from the years before. And he was hurt, I believe it was last season. So, there's always that factor there. And I wouldn't just go crazy and just drop Tim Frazier, who is a good young player. I would kind of just hold on just a couple games and see, what happens with that whole situation, and see if Tim Frazier can still have a role while Jrue Holiday is back. The other thing you got to be aware of is that Tyreke Evans is supposed to be coming back. I think they said mid-December, so just for future reference, keep him on your radar. You probably don't want to stash him, because that's several weeks that you're going to be gone with somebody stashed on your bench. Other situation I wanted to talk about, Chandler Parsons. He's still kind of limited and still getting a limited time. I had mentioned him in my Deep Sleepers video as a pickup, but for me, just for my taste, he's taking too long to come around. I don't have the patience to wait for him, and even he's getting limited minutes, and then in those limited minutes, he's not doing much with it. So even after he gets into shape and starts feeling 100% healthy, he's still going to have to get his rhythm, and still going to have to get into a better rhythm where he can give some great production. So it's going to take a long time, I'm not saying the whole season, but it's going to take a good amount of time for him to get back to where he was formerly, to give you that type of production. So if it were me, I'd drop him, but that's all team dependent, and how you feel about your squad and what you think your squad needs or lacks, or if you think he's worth holding on to. That's your judgment. But me personally, just giving you guys a heads up, it's going to be a while before he gets back to the Chandler Parsons of old. So be aware of that. Gordon Hayward came back. He's been a beast. He's probably the coldest white boy in the game right now, as far as fantasy. He does a great job. He gets buckets, man. He's just a good all-around player, and if you drafted him, you're happy with the way he's come back. He's been getting, he's getting you stats all over, and it hadn't really affected the play of other players on the Jazz. Rodney Hood's still doing well. So yeah, Gordon Hayward, just want to mention him. He came back. That's one of those guys that you drafted that wasn't going to be immediately available, and you took a risk, and cheers to you, because it's paying off, and he's looking like, Gordon Hayward, a healthy Gordon Hayward from last year. So Gordon Hayward's been beasting. So that's good. That's a good job for whoever did that. I didn't want to run the risk of not knowing, what he was going to come back like or anything like that. There's always that risk factor there. So Gordon Hayward owners, I salute you. You did a good job. And yeah, that kind of wraps up week 3. We're getting into week 4 now. So all these guys that I mentioned, plug and play them. If you picked up, and not if you picked up, but there's still guys that I mentioned previously that are still not owned where they should be. JJ Barea is still under 50% owned. Trevor Booker, who's leading his team in fantasy points average, is still under percent owned with the Brooklyn Nets. Sergio Rodriguez is still giving great assist amounts. He's under 50% owned. So, yeah, Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, another one. So, you can go back to the previous videos and look at some of the waiver wire prospects that I mentioned there. They still apply to these weeks if they're available in your league. Their production is carried out, so just check how they've been doing and check their ownership percentage and see if they're available and scoop them up. Like I said, I'm trying to bring new guys and look at trends of other players who are trending up because I don't want to just keep reiterating the same information. So this has been the Fantasy Buckets podcast. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Check out my Twitter for daily plug and play guys on injury updates if there is some. It'll be in the description below. You can also find me on SoundCloud if you don't want to look at my face and just hear the basketball talk. That's cool too. Yeah, man, hit the like button, hit the share, subscribe if you dare to. And I appreciate you guys tuning in.